US 6, yeah! George R. Stewart, the author of US 40, A Cross-Section of America, which is a book that I read in high school, of course, said of US 6, Route 6 runs uncertainly from nowhere to nowhere, scarcely to be followed from one end to the other, except by some devoted eccentric. Well, devoted eccentrics is kind of the brand of this channel, so let's dig in. Yeah, US 6. We are doing a supercut of the great US 6 today. Let's take a look at the route, and we see US 6 goes from Bishop, California to Provincetown, Massachusetts on Cape Cod. Used to go all the way down to Long Beach, but now Bishop, California. We are doing the whole thing today. And just like before, in the interest of time and continuity, there will be a couple of requests from the original episodes that'll be cut, but all new requests will definitely be in. All right, let's talk about Eastbound US 6. We begin in Bishop, California, a place I've never been to, a place far away from any interstate highway, and someplace I'd like to check out at some point. US 395 leaves downtown Bishop and spawns the beginning of US 6. US 6 is signed for Tonopah right in the beginning. So here is the actual turnoff for the start of US 6, and we get a mileage sign seeing that Tonopah is indeed 112 miles away. And we get this lovely sign at the start, US 6 East, Provincetown, Mass, 3,205 miles away. We are on the second longest highway in America. You're watching Control City Freak. This is the YouTube channel where we talk about highways and the places that they're signed to go to. If you dig this kind of content, why not give us a like? And if you really like it, why not subscribe? Yeah, subscribe. We've got wonderful views throughout the western half of this road. It is fantastic. So this is US 6 in California. The cutoff for Yosemite National Park, and we continue 82 miles toward Tonopah. We do get a cool California-style, old-timey East US 6 shield here. Junction, Nevada 360, 20 miles away, so you know you're not going through much if a different state is signing a junction with a state highway. And welcome to Nevada. In Nevada, we're getting Coaldale Junction. That is where we meet US 95, 34, then Tonopah, and now we're jumping all the way to Ely for our control city after that. Past Montgomery Pass, 7,167 feet, so we are pretty high up, although 6 will go higher. 360 goes to Hawthorne, which we saw recently, and 6 continues toward Tonopah. On our next mileage sign, we get the same control cities as we did on the previous one. Lovely basin and range, rugged mountains around these parts. We're meeting US 95 now. We talked about US 95 pretty recently. You can check out the US 95 northbound video right over there. US 95 goes north for Hawthorne and Reno. We go for Tonopah and Las Vegas. We follow US 6 into Tonopah and oh man, why would anybody ever want to stay there? That's the scariest looking thing I'd ever seen. Oh my god. And we head out of Tonopah. The clowns didn't get us, and we have Las Vegas 208 miles away. Here is where we split. 6 is now signed for Ely and Austin. I don't know, a couple thousand people between those two. And it would kind of make sense to put Salt Lake City on 6's sign here at this point as well, I think. Our first request is from Gabe Garret. He wanted to see the US 95 and US 6 split in Tonopah, so thank you so much for that request. Gabe made that request by putting in a $5 super thanks for a comment on a video, which anybody can for future videos for anything that I have coming up. US 60 coming soon. US 60 eastern half is now closed, but requests for the western half are wide open, as are those for US 322, and I appreciate everybody who does that. We also have a Patreon going, so anybody with a $5 or more level there can also make requests included within the package. So I appreciate those of you who do that as well. After splitting from US 95, junction State Route 375, 49 miles away. Wow, 49 miles for a junction with the state route, and Ely 167. 375 is also known as the extraterrestrial superhighway. This is the area where you go right kind of near Area 51. The little alien, all that is in Rachel, Nevada, so turn right for all that. Now we're getting Ely 119, Delta 273. Wow, there's less than 7,000 people between the two of those. And we get some nice landscapes as we cross Nevada. We're meeting Nevada 318, which will be a shortcut over to Vegas from this point, and Ely still straight ahead. Lovely scenery out here. US 50 gets all the run, but US 6 does pretty nice too. Past Murray Summit, so another somewhat high summit, 7,300 feet. Coming down the mountain, starting to get some trees now. We are above Ely and we are coming down toward it. In Ely, we meet two different highways. Wow, we've got US 50 and US 93. Turn left for 50 and 93 for Ely, Carson City, and Twin Falls. Carson City. City. I wonder why they don't go Reno. We are joining a triple concurrency with 50 and 93. 3 signs here, East 6, East 50, and South US 93. Getting Junction US 93 24 miles away, then Hinckley and Delta. So those are all US 6 things that are listed there, not US 93 things. We cross over some more mountains, and now we're at Connors Pass. This is actually a westbound shot because there was no sign for eastbound. Looking the other way from the top of this mountain as we go head down. We are now going to split with US 93, and we are signed for Great Basin National Park and Delta. We will continue to be concurrent with US 50. The actual split where we see our straight ahead and their turn. Delta, a now more reasonable 126 miles away, and we've got these nice looming mountains. Here's a kind of famous view of the loneliest road, US 50 loneliest road, also US 6 in this part. Kind of a traffic jam going on there. 2 cars, including the one we're in. And more views across the vast Nevada landscape. This is really a beautiful highway. I've driven this part of it, 50 loneliest road, but I was going westbound. Here's our turnoff for Great Basin National Park, and now we're getting Hinckley 90 and Delta 96. Those aren't really that far apart. We're getting them from quite a ways away. It's just because there's not really anything until we get to Hinckley. Here's kind of the only point of interest. We've got a border casino as we are leaving Nevada. And welcome to Utah. In Utah, once again, just Hinckley and Delta. We pass right by Elephant Rock, which is pretty awesome looking. You can see the elephant there in the upper right. And we've got more awesome mountain views across Utah. Here's a nice big sky shot as we head east. And we pass by a lake, which seems a little out of place in this desert kind of landscape. We reach Hinckley, yay! Coming out of Hinckley, we get 4 miles to Delta, 94 for Provo, and 139 for Salt Lake City, which is interesting because neither 6 nor 50 go to Salt Lake City, yet it's probably the right thing to be signing here. Here is downtown Delta, really kind of the only civilization we've seen since we left Tonopah. 6 and 50 finally split in Delta. Going 6, we turn left, and we are signed for Salt Lake. 50 is signed for Fillmore going straight. Going in a bit of a northern direction, and we are getting Lyndill 15, Eureka, and Salt Lake. We meet Utah 139 in Lyndill, and now we're getting just Eureka and Nephi. So Salt Lake goes away for now, and we're just getting Eureka. I know we don't go to Salt Lake, but it is the right thing to sign. Salt Lake City comes back, so we're getting Eureka and Salt Lake. This is Utah Highway 36. We're still getting Eureka again at these smaller junctions. And here is Eureka. After all that signage, it seems pretty boarded up. It is population 700, and I imagine falling. We enter Utah County. Real creative county naming there, Utah. Here's some more nice views of US 6. And here we're meeting Utah 68. Again, why not Salt Lake City? In Santaquin, we join I-15. So we go north I-15 for Salt Lake. Utah signs US 6 right there with I-15, so that's cool. We get a mileage sign on I-15. We are not making it all the way up to Provo or Salt Lake City. I don't know why Utah 156 would get top billing over US 6 for Spanish Fork, Main Street, and Price if you head this way. Coming southbound, they had the same sign, and I feel like they ought to have Denver on there too, because that'd be the route to Denver. On this interchange, we see left, you go 156 for Spanish Fork and Main Street, and east, we cut out of Spanish Fork, and we are bound for Price. Right here, we're meeting US 89, which we'll definitely cover one day. That's a great road. We continue for Price. Price, 60 miles away. We're right next to these railroad tracks as we go through, I believe, the Wasatch Mountains. US 6 and US 89 are going to be splitting, and that sign up ahead, I'm not bothering to show it because it's all US 89 control cities for turning right. You get Price 50, a single sign. Price is kind of the only thing we're running into, so that kind of makes sense. Again, lovely scenes as we go through this mountain canyon. This is one of the main routes between Salt Lake City and Denver. Soldier Summit, another 7,400-ish mountain peak, so quite a few that we're hitting on US 6. This is also a westbound sign because there was none on eastbound. Passed by a rock called Castle Gate, and yeah, looks like the gate of a castle. And this is pretty awesome, this part of US 6. We are about to meet US 191. This scene just tells you, hey, you're about to meet US 191, pretty much the most beautiful road there is. We're now signed for Helper and Price, and here's our East US 6 and South 191 sign. Helper and Price are on a mileage sign up ahead. And here is Helper. Helper always sounded like a weird name to me for a city, but apparently it was named Helper because they put some kind of helper locomotive onto the trains going up these tall mountains. Business Loop, US 6 and Main Street. Further down, we're going to be meeting Price. We're now signed 6 East to Junction I-70, which is a long way away. And that junction's kind of in the middle of nowhere too. Also, I kind of feel like this is 191 erasure here. How come no sign for 191? We're still on 191. Here's our last exit for Price, and we are going back into the wilderness after that. At this point, we are assigned for Wellington, just because there's not really anything else to sign. And here's a real last chance gas station. You're not going to have another chance to get gas until we get to Green River off of I-70. We're meeting Utah 123. We are going to be signed for Green River at this point. Now we're getting Green River and Grand Junction, which is apt because US 6 does go to both of those. Meeting I-70 here signed for Green River and Salina. It's our ramp where we're going to be getting onto I-70, and we've just got sweeping vistas of I-70 heading that way. Here is the actual Green River of Green River that we cross. And we got fair treatment on I-15 with US 6 signed there. We're on 6 and 191 still, but we are not getting signed for that on I-70. I-70 is forcing itself to stand alone. We're also on US 50 at this point too. Crescent Junction, which is kind of the next town after Green River, then Grand Junction and Denver on our mileage sign. And here is where 191 will split away from us, heading south for Crescent Junction and Moab. After passing through Crescent Junction, there really isn't anything at all left in Utah, so we just get Grand Junction and Denver signed. A rare case of a state signing 2 out-of-state control cities. So because we're on I-70, I skipped ahead to Colorado, and Colorado ignores us as well. We are just on 70 in Colorado. They do not sign 6 or 50. In Grand Junction, US 6 and US 50 leave I-70, so we are headed off, and 6 and US 50 split once again, US 50 east for Montrose, and we're doing North Avenue. After heading through and skirting around downtown Grand Junction, we are now meeting I-70 bypass once again, so we turn left there. And we're coming to I-70. I just wanted to show this Denny's because I stopped there the last time I was there. In fact, it was the first time my wife had ever been to a Denny's, so that was a cool spot. At the end of Business 70, we meet I-70. We have a choice for east or west. They do not sign US 6 even getting onto I-70. They just stop signing it. Wow, it's so weird of Colorado to be bad at signing stuff. That's so off-brand for them. This is even worse. We're back on I-70, and we're going to exit again at West Rifle. And on the interstate, they don't give us a sign for US 6 at all. US 6 is concurrent with 70 here and leaving here, and they don't tell us anything. And then once we get off the ramp, we get a 2 Colorado 13 North, but no sign for US 6 at all. We are, in fact, on eastbound US 6 that we see shortly after turning there, but they don't tell us how to get to this point. Colorado, This is Rifle, Colorado, and 6 is continuing straight through town. US 6 is quite near I-70 at this point, so I wouldn't sign US 6 for anything too far away. I'd sign it next for Silt, which is where we are now. We can see we are directly next to I-70 as we move between Silt and Newcastle, and then we are forced back onto I-70 here in Chakra. We go through Glenwood Canyon. Eastbound lanes of I-70 through Glenwood Canyon is actually the original routing of US 6 through Glenwood Canyon. Obviously, there's not room in this canyon to put 2 different roads here, so we are concurrent with 70 again, and 70 is on US 6's old pavement. US 6 will exit again here at Dotsero, but we get no sign for US 6 once again. Heading toward Gypsum, now we just get Frontage Road signed, even though Frontage Road here is US 6. They tell us it's Frontage Road, which we can figure out because it's next to the interstate. Our road to Gypsum on US 6. We get to Eagle, so there's another chance to get back to I-70 and East 6 straight ahead. And next we head through Walcott, and we've got this creek going through here, so this is a pretty nice looking place. At Colorado 131, we are now signed for Edwards, and you turn left there for Steamboat Springs. This is the Edwards area. You can still see I-70 in the background over there. We're never too far away from it in Colorado. In Avon, we see 6 is signed east for Eagle Vale, a city that is between Eagle and Vale, Colorado. And the other way, Arrowhead West. Isn't that Mile High Stadium? That's where we're going in this episode anyway. That's east of here, Arrowhead West. Here is Eagle Vale. We meet the start of US 24. We don't get anything signed for it. Should be Lawrence, Kansas, obviously. And we get East I-70. But no sign for US 6 whatsoever, once again. We're concurrent with 70 again, and now we are leaving 70 again at Silverthorne and Dillon, and this is the way to Loveland Pass. Going up Loveland Pass on US 6, this is the hazmat route around the Eisenhower Tunnel. This is a pretty cool road. I've done this a couple of times. Wouldn't want to do it in the winter, though. This is what it looked like on Street View in 2011. Wow, that is rough. And here's the actual highest point on US 6. It's one of the highest road points anywhere in the US. Loveland Pass, 11,990 feet, south down the mountain, and we can see I-70 in the distance there to our left. Got some real severe curves on this road as we head down. And we come back to I-70, and as Colorado does, we don't have a sign for 6. We're concurrent with I-70 again, and then we are going to split off for the Denver area, 70 East Denver, and we are getting 6 East Golden. Pretty nice road as we head down into Golden. Clear Creek Canyon Road. We've got Clear Creek just to the right of us, that bridge over Clear Creek, and we're heading into this tunnel. So this is all pretty beautiful, awesome stuff. Meeting Colorado 93 and 58, and US 6 is turning right, and we'll be signed for Denver. We pass Lookout Mountain Road. The one time I stayed in Golden, Colorado, I went up to Lookout Mountain. It's pretty nice. Colorado 470. I did stuff about that last time the Chiefs played the Broncos. Red Rocks. Never seen a show there. That'd be awesome. We are having US 6 and US 40 meet. US 40 is going to become Colfax Avenue in downtown Denver. We'll get to that at the next Broncos game, 6th Avenue. It's a freeway. It's not a street. It's not an avenue. It's kind of weird. Colorado 391, and this was requested by Stealthy Noctowl. And he says when he used to work at FedEx in the southern Denver metro, he would take this route home if I-25 had too much traffic. Thank you so much for that meeting, I-25. We are not signing US 6, even though US 6 is a freeway itself, meeting a freeway. We are not signing that US 6 gets onto northbound I-25 here for reasons. I don't know. We get a decent view of downtown Denver from this end of 6th Avenue. And here is our ramp onto I-25, unsigned US 6 at this point. We meet US 40 and 287 Colfax Avenue, which again, we will see in a future episode. And here it is, Arrowhead West. Nah, I don't want to talk too much. I mean, we got killed by the Broncos for years and years. Beat me up all through my youth. But the Chiefs play the Broncos this week, so I hope we win by 100. Right here, we pass the amusement park that is right near downtown Denver. It's kind of interesting placement of this amusement park being so close to downtown. And here we go. This kind of was requested by Andy Weishar because the one he requested is one I'm not actually covering in this episode. So thank you so much for that request. And 70 East Lyman, also unsigned US 6. Outside of downtown Denver, US 6 does get its exit with US 85 for Vasquez Boulevard, and US 6 now will leave I-70 forever after being intertwined with it for quite a ways. We meet 270, but we only have a chance to get on westbound 270, so fortunately we don't have to see what eastbound might say. On the 270 sign, we're only getting US 85 signed here for Vasquez Boulevard, even though this is US 6. Colorado just hates signing US 6 at all. We're meeting Colorado 2, and we continue straight on US 6 and North 85. We get dumped onto I-76, and I-76 is actually signing all 3 roads. Now we meet US 85. It is signed north for Greeley. I-76 here signed for Fort Morgan still. Fort Morgan has like 11,000 people. I don't think it should be the control city by any means. Sterling is a little larger than it, but not much, a bit further past. I do think the control city should be Nebraska, because I said it should be 70, should be Kansas. This should be Nebraska, because there's a string of cities in Nebraska. But if you want to just say Omaha, that's okay. I would also be okay with Nebraska, and then on the mileage signs alternate between Omaha and Lincoln, with Lincoln being every 3rd or 4th sign. This is weird. We do not have a direct interchange with E470, so we just have this surface street that we get to get to E470. And we end out in the countryside pretty quickly on I-76. We're pretty well out of urban Denver already, as you can tell by the 4-lane road. And we follow some railroad tracks. If you're into trains, this could be a cool road. See a lot of trains on this road. Here's the first mileage sign I could see outside of Denver, and we don't even list Fort Morgan. We list Sterling. Colorado's all over the place. Brush is adjacent to Fort Morgan, so maybe they're not signing Fort Morgan because they're signing Brush. On the interchanges, this is all you get for the most part. We don't get control cities on the interchanges. We just get to East 76 to West 76, just like in Lyman. We meet US 34 in Fort Morgan, and 6 will continue on I-76. US 34 comes back to us, and we are going to be exiting I-76 for Akron, Yuma, and Ray with US 34. At the end of the ramp, this sign's pretty weird. 2 US 6 and 2 US 34. It's not 2. This is US 6. US 6 is kind of the service road for I-76 between Brush and Sterling, so I'm not going to worry about all these small towns we meet on the way. Obviously, each one should be the control city for 6, because if you were going further, you take 76. In Sterling, we are meeting the beginning of 138, I believe, and we continue straight for Holyoke. Here's our last junction with I-76, and then we leave it forever. On I-76, US 6 is signed for Sterling and Holyoke. Sterling is right around where we are. Holyoke is a little ways away, as we'll see. So we get a mileage sign. Holyoke is 48 miles away. It's basically the last town in Colorado. We will jump ahead there. Downtown Holyoke, and we will meet US 385 and the High Plains Highway. We get to the Nebraska border, and apparently this border is so rarely visited that there's no street view since 2007. In Nebraska, McCook is going to become our primary control. Here's where we actually do meet US 34 and become concurrent with it after bouncing off US 34 in Sterling. And for 6 and 34, McCook is still going to be the control city. In McCook, we meet US 83, so we are going to be concurrent with US 83 southbound as well. Northbound US 83 is signed for North Platte, and our next control city is going to be Holdridge, 74 miles away. Further down in McCook, US 6 and 34 are going to go straight, and US 83 is going to leave us and head south. We meet US 283 in Arapahoe on the way, and here is the start of US 136, kind of in the middle of nowhere. Holdridge is still our control city. And it's a little bit bigger of a city than what we'd seen before, although I think McCook is bigger. US 6 and 34 are signed to go straight, and we are meeting US 183. Looks like Kearney is our next primary control city, and Kearney is a place I've heard of. We aren't heading to Kearney. We're going straight, and the state highway is heading to Kearney, and Minden will now be our control city. Here's Minden. We meet Nebraska 10, and we are still concurrent with US 34. In Minden now we get Hastings as our control city, so that's another place I've heard of. We meet US 281, and we're going to be concurrent with that for a little ways as well. And in Hastings, US 34 and US 281 are going to split off, and 6 will become independent once again. Coming out of Hastings, now we're getting Lincoln 99. Lincoln is our control city. That's quite a swing. You wouldn't take US 6 to Lincoln, I wouldn't think. You'd probably cut up to I-80 and take that because it'd be faster. We're meeting US 81, and 81 South is signed for Geneva. We are signed for Fairmont and York going straight. Fairmont and York go away after passing through, and now we're getting Exeter and Lincoln. This is Nebraska 33, and Crete is signed here. I actually think Crete should probably be the primary control for US 6 coming out of maybe McCook, because Crete is quite a bit bigger than any of these other towns we're going through. And we don't go all the way to Crete, but we cut off it here. This is kind of a weird one. At Nebraska 15, we are getting Seward 9 straight ahead and Lincoln 17 turn right. But if you wanted to go to Lincoln, you'd be better off going straight and hitting I-80. US 6 parallels I-80 for quite a while, and then we are finally going to meet it right around here with US 77. We are in Lincoln now. We're getting the Haymarket Park event parking lot, and 6 is turning left. The Lincoln skyline a little bit in the background there, which I think is just the Nebraska State House. We cross over I-180 and US 34, so we get to meet one of the famous 180s. So 180 and US 34 turn left, and 6 will become the Cornhusker Expressway, veering to the right. And before we almost touched I-80, we had an exit for it, but we didn't actually cross it. Here's our first true I-80 meeting, and we'll be seeing a lot of I-80 for the next while. And we are getting US 6 East Waverly. We're getting Omaha on the mileage sign, which makes sense. I wouldn't necessarily say Omaha should be the control city here, though, because if you wanted to go to Omaha, again, you'd take I-80. And we're getting Ashland 7. I feel like the secondaries are kind of more key on this road, because any long-distance traffic would take the other road. In Ashland, we meet Nebraska 66, and we get Lincoln and Omaha. We cross the Platte River. This is our meeting with Nebraska 31, and Gretna will kind of be our control city now. We're crossing over US 275. It's heading to Wahoo! On US 275, here is our exit for US 6 and Nebraska 31 for Gretna and Elkhorn. Gretna's to the south, Elkhorn is to the north. And we leave Nebraska 31 and get 6 East Omaha. And 6 should be signed for Omaha at this point, and we are very close. Technically, we're in Omaha, in the Elkhorn area of Omaha, but it is an exclave of Omaha. Here's 150th Street in Omaha, and this was requested by Luke Eccles. So thank you so much for that request. I really appreciate that. A laundry list of exits sign on the US 6 freeway in Omaha. We're going to be meeting 680 and 80. Actually, 680 is what's leaving here, and 6 East becomes Dodge Road. Here's the University of Nebraska, Omaha, which nobody outside of Nebraska ever knows about, so hey, Cornhusker fans, you don't have to say UNL. When you say Nebraska, we know it's Lincoln. Dodge Street is going to become a one-way, so we're going to veer to the right and head down 1 block to the south. Right here, we cross over 480 and US 75. US 75 video you can check out right over here. That's quite a road. And we head right into downtown Omaha on US 6, so that's pretty interesting. And we pass right by this, the tallest building in Omaha. I think it's the Omaha building. Leaving downtown, US 6 dumps into 480, and we're going to be crossing the river. And the people of Iowa welcome you. We are crossing the Missouri River, and we've got Riverfront West Broadway exit only. US 6 follows I-29 and I-80 around Council Bluffs, but we are going to take the old US 6 because we've done enough 29 and 80, so we're going to take exit 0 for Riverfront West Broadway. Here is Broadway, old US 6, and pretty sweet car that we see on Street View right away. We're on kind of a bypass road, and we're going to take the old road into historic downtown. And here is downtown Council Bluffs, and we merge back onto that main arterial that is old 6. I-80 East Des Moines, which is where we meet US 6's current designation. US 6 is sound for Council Bluffs and Oakland. Council Bluffs is the road we were on. It's not actually US 6 anymore. Oakland is where we're heading now. So as US 6 leaves I-80, we see it is signed Oakland 21 miles away. We meet US 59, which should be signed for Lawrence, and we will be concurrent with it. US 59 is going to split off, and we will go straight. Right here we are meeting US 71 south, and we will be concurrent with that for just a short amount of time. We've reached I-80, and US 71 northbound is going to continue north. We are going to be joining I-80 once again. And Iowa is nice enough to give us a US 6 sign on I-80, not doing like those Colorado people. On I-80, of course, Des Moines is our control city. Our next request is actually off of the main line of US 6. It is on old US 6 in Iowa. This is between Casey and Menlo. This was requested by FLK0217 because he took it to his first teaching gig. US 6 was White Pole Road, which we can see in the sign here, between Des Moines and Council Bluffs, and it's still his favorite road and a good route for not trying to sprint through western Iowa. So thank you so much for that request. US 6 is going to leave right here with US 169 for Adel. So we're turning left heading to Adel 5 miles up, and after going north for 5 miles, we are going to continue east. So we turn right once again and leave US 169. On US 6, we get this control sign and we get Urbandale 15. I think Urbandale is probably the best control for US 6 because at this point you'd still take I-80 for Des Moines. It's still a little faster. In the Urbandale area, we are meeting I-35 and I-80's Des Moines concurrency here. We've got another Iowa request from FLK0217. This is the Iowa 28 junction in Des Moines, and he requested that because he lives 3 minutes away from there. So good times. Des Moines is a nice town. Thank you for that request. US 69 in this kind of random neighborhood. You would expect US 6 and US 69 to meet right in downtown Des Moines. Maybe at one point they did. Meeting I-235 and East 6 straight ahead. North US 65, Mason City next left. 65 is an awesome road. I'll do that one day. And we pass right by Adventureland. I remember seeing that on the freeway a bunch when I was a kid. We always wanted to go there. My dad and my brother finally did go while I was in Korea, so I was super jealous of not going to Adventureland. This is pretty weird here. We're meeting I-80 eastbound, and it's going to be for US 6. Westbound I-80 is going to be also north US 65. US 65 does kind of a weird thing. So let's take a look here. US 65 is kind of on a freeway, and it ends at I-80, then goes one exit on I-80, and then exits once again to be on the road that we're on US 6. I don't know why US 65 doesn't just exit at US 6 and become concurrent, because 65 is going to go straight north there anyway. Seems like a really weird, convoluted route. We were concurrent with I-80 for a little bit, and now we're going to be leaving it once again for Newton and Monroe. US 6 at Newton was requested by Jordan, so thank you so much for that request. Here we are in downtown Newton, and after leaving Newton, I feel like Grinnell should probably be our next control city, but we are quite close to I-80 at this point too. So again, you wouldn't take US 6 to Iowa City, you'd take I-80. Here's Grinnell, home of Grinnell University. I have a couple of friends who went there, always with the t-shirts, "Where the hell is Grinnell?" Well, it's here. Coming out of Grinnell, Iowa City is still on the the bottom line, but we're still at a point where you take I-80 instead of US 6 if you were going to Iowa City. Meeting US 63, and we are going to be concurrent with US 63 for a short amount of time. US 63 is leaving us, and we are continuing on US 6 for Brooklyn. We're going to be concurrent with 151 now, so that's why we are getting Cedar Rapids on our signs. 151 goes to Cedar Rapids. Coralville is where we will be going. And now we split with 151, so 151 goes straight, and Cedar Rapids, we are going east toward Iowa City. We pass under I-380, no big surprise because we know that goes between Cedar Rapids and Iowa City. We don't have an exit for it though. And we also pass under I-80 with no exit. We're very near the I-80 and 380 exits, which I think that is why we don't have an exit. We're entering Iowa City. We get this cool Iowa City bridge. And in Iowa City, we go right past the University of Iowa, so I've got lots of friends who've gone there. We're meeting US 218 in Iowa City. And US 6 is going to be turning left for West Liberty as we cross the Iowa River. Davenport becomes our primary control city once we are out of Iowa City. But again, if you were going to Davenport, you'd probably be taking I-80. We find our way back to I-80, and we are going to turn right on East 80 East 6. On I-80, Durant, 8 miles away, Davenport is the bottom line. And we pass by Iowa 80, the world's largest truck stop. I recommend the hot dogs. This is a little weird. We're meeting 280, so 280 is signed for Rock Island and Moline, 80 is signed for Chicago, so the Davenport signage just disappears. Leaving I-80 once again on 280 along with South US 61. Northbound US 61 is going to go on 80 itself. We leave 280 after 1 mile and become more or less independent, East 6 on Kimberly Road. And we see Kimberly Road turn right on US 6, Davenport 7 miles away, although I think we're actually in the Davenport city limits already. We're meeting US 61, again in a non-freeway function. This also feels like this should be a downtown meeting. US 61, US 6, meeting I-74, and we're going to become concurrent with that, 74 East Moline, which makes sense in this part that it would be signed Moline. And this isn't there anymore, but at this interchange, we've got the Jumers. My parents tell me this was the happening spot in the 70s. We meet US 67, the Avenue of the Saints, more or less, and it is signed for Grant Street and State Street and Riverfront. We cross the Mississippi River. Yay, we've made it all the way to the Mississippi. Welcome to Illinois. We are on the Mississippi River, crossing into Illinois on the I-74 bridge, the new bridge. As we head into the Illinois side, we see we're getting exits for I-74 and I-280. US 6 will continue straight, and we are signed for Quad City Airport. The freeway ends and we hit a stoplight, and we are turning left to follow US 6 and 2 US 150. Coming here, we are signed for Geneseo and the Quad City Zoo, which I remember seeing from 280 right over here a lot. Here is our entrance to the zoo, and we can see 280 and 74 right next to us. I've never been on this US 6 part to my knowledge, although I might have been on it like as an infant or something. We go under 280 and I-74. We don't have a junction with them right here. We do have a junction with I-80 right after that interchange, and we see 80 is signed west for Des Moines and east for Joliet. I know they always do that in Illinois, but I feel like signing a suburb is never the way to go. Coming off of I-80, you have a choice of Geneseo and Moline, and we are headed toward Geneseo. Here in Geneseo, we are turning left to continue on US 6 here to head to Princeton. We meet US 34. We've met that quite a bit in Nebraska, and we are meeting it again, and we are signed straight ahead for Princeton. Yet Princeton on the middle line and Mendota at the bottom line. I believe that is a US 34 city. Downtown Princeton, we split from US 34. This was requested by Mitch Campbell. He wanted to note it's where US 34 Main Street goes north from US 6 Peru Street towards I-80. And Peru Street is fitting because Peru will be the next place we'll be signed for. So thank you so much for that request. Leaving Princeton, we get a sign for 180 4 miles away, and Peru is 19. And here we hit the famed Illinois 180, perhaps the worst of the 180s, given that it goes to nowhere. 180 South Hennepin and 180 North signed for Interstate 80. Why not? We get to downtown Peru, Illinois, and shortly after Peru, sort of still in the Peru metro area, we are meeting I-39 and US 51, signed north for Rockford and south for Bloomington Normal. Coming off of I-39, LaSalle, Peru would be in the direction that we just came from, although LaSalle is kind of to the right as well. Ottawa toward the right, and that will be our next control city. In Ottawa, we are making a turn, and we are getting signed for Marseille, Illinois. I'm sure they probably pronounce it differently, but I'm pronouncing it the right way. I don't know. Coming out of Marseille, we now get Seneca and Morris as our control cities on eastern US 6. We meet Illinois 47 in Morris, kind of the far western highway for Chicagoland. We are turning right here, where we will be signed for Channahon. We're meeting I-55. I-55 is correctly signed north for Chicago and signed south for Bloomington, which at these sort of intersections is fine. And if you come off I-55, US 6 itself is signed for Joliet if we turn right. We don't intersect with I-80, but we do cross under it right near this famously bad, obsolete bridge. We meet up with our old friend US 52, so turn right and we will be concurrent with US 52 for a little bit through Joliet. At Illinois 53, we are splitting with US 52 and we are heading east by turning left. US 52 is heading east by turning right. This is also old Route 66 as well. You can check out my Route 66 video right over here. We meet US 30 in downtown Joliet right near this minor league ballpark, and before too long we split with US 30. We will go straight at this intersection with Cass Street. We're meeting the beginning of Illinois 171, which is Archer Avenue through much of the Chicagoland area. This was requested by the Derpog. He wanted to see this intersection because it is the route to his mom's hometown in Lamont, Illinois. So thanks so much for that request. We're meeting I-355 and it is signed South Tollway to I-80. It's not really getting a control city because it just takes you back to I-80. Joliet is often the signage here, but we just came from Joliet, so that wouldn't make sense. So a 2 I-80 is probably our best option here. Coming off of 355, US 6 is signed for Joliet and New Lenox. Toward New Lenox we shall go. We are going to be turning a right for 159th Street, which is US 6's route through the south suburbs of Chicago. We're in Orland right here, straight ahead for Orland Park, the mall, that whole area. We're turning right for Tinley Park. We're meeting US 45 LaGrange Road. This is beyond where US 45 is concurrent with 12 and 20. We are south of that here because we're on 159th Street, well south of 95th Street. US 6 continues straight, and here is Illinois Route 50, Cicero Avenue, as we continue through the south suburbs of Chicagoland. Meeting I-57, I-57 south here, and 57 north ahead, and toll 294 because we have a direct interchange with that. Here's our interchange on to 294, and don't worry, I will do that road one day. I'm not sure when, but I got lots to say about the tri-state. 294 is signed south for Indiana, as it always is. And as well it should be. Coming off of 294, US 6, 159th Street is signed for Harvey and for Markham. So we were just in Markham and we are headed toward Harvey eastbound. We meet Illinois Route 1, Halsted Street here in Harvey. And now we meet I-94, the Bishop Ford or the Calumet Expressway. We continue straight past that. Once we get to Torrance, we are going to turn right. US 6 will turn off of 159th Street, saying 162nd Street here, but I think it's still 159th. And we will head toward the Borman on that. Joining I-80 and I-94 for the Kingery Expressway at this point, but it'll become the Borman once we cross Indiana. And welcome to Indiana. We get this large overhead sign because you're not going to see a small sign on the side of the road with all the trucks on the Borman. We're meeting US 41. I did a video about Northern 41. You can check that out over here. This is in Hammond, Indiana, and this was requested by Andrew DeVore because he watches Top Gear and one of the hosts is named Richard Hammond. That's a cool one. Thanks for that request. Appreciate that. On the Borman, it is signed westbound for Chicago, no surprise, and eastbound 8094 for Detroit, which I think is okay because you stay on the same carriageway to get to 94 to Detroit. Also, Detroit's just a bigger city than Toledo is. Here we're going through Gary. We get our Klein Avenue exit. Here's what the mileage signs look like on the Borman. And now we're meeting I-65 shortly, South Indianapolis, quite a bit sooner than north to Toll Road. And this exit, Broadway, will take you to downtown Gary if you hang a left onto that. And now we get our 80 East 90 Toll Road, always with this weird vertical alignment for 80. We get US 6 East for Ripley Street and South 51. At the end of Ripley Street, we are going to be turning left to stay on US 6, and we are signed for Portage now. On Indiana Route 49, which acts as an expressway in these parts, US 6 is signed for Westville and Portage. So we're beyond Portage. Westville will be our next control city on US 6. We meet US 421 and we are concurrent with it briefly, and I'm just showing where we leave the concurrency. We are turning left and we are signed for Walkerton now. We're going to be merging with US 35 North and concurrent with that for a little bit, and we are signed for Walkerton and Knox. Turn left for US 35 North to LaPorte, Indiana. It's hard to find this sign. It's really hidden in the trees. That's why I have this bad angle here, but we see we get a longer mileage sign now with Kendallville at 64 miles away. We meet US 31, which is a freeway in these parts, and US 31 North signed for South Bend. Continuing east, we are going to be concurrent with US 33 for a ways. US 33, if you turn left to go north, also will go to South Bend. We split with US 33 in Ligonier, Indiana here, and we also meet Indiana Highway 5. We meet I-69 pretty soon after that, and on I-69, US 6 is signed for Kendallville and Waterloo. Waterloo will become our next control city. Coming out of Waterloo, Butler will now become our only control. We just get a Butler 9. Big surprise, it's the last city before crossing a state line, so therefore it's the only thing we're signing. Weird of Indiana to be provincial in that kind of way. Indiana's usually better about that. In downtown Butler, we are getting a US 6 bar and grill, so I gotta show that. You know, being here on US 6, that's pretty cool. And after Butler, now we get signs for cities in Ohio because we don't have any cities left in Indiana to sign. We cross into Ohio. Looks like Ohio spent all their budget for signs on the interstate ones. We're going to be meeting US 127, signed for Bryan, north of here. This was requested by Jake Prather because Bryan is his old hometown, so he wanted to see that. And thank you so much for that request. Appreciate that. Here's the actual junction with 127, so Bryan would be turning left here. We go straight to continue down US 6. In Napoleon, Ohio, we are meeting US 24. US 24 signed west for Defiance and Fort Wayne. Could be signing Lawrence. We're joining US 24, so we are going eastbound. We're signed for Bowling Green. And taking a look back, this is actually going westbound. Jake Prather wanted me to point out in the westbound loop, US 6 is signed for Kendallville and Chicago. Cool that we are signed for Chicago here in Ohio, and thank you for that request. On the 24 and 6 concurrency on this freeway, there used to be an at-grade railroad crossing right here. You can kind of see the divots in the road showing where it used to be, and it was taken out between 2015 and 2018. This was requested by Andrew Weishart because he thought it was interesting how it is no longer there, which makes sense because it's kind of a freeway thing. We are now splitting with US 24, and 6 is signed east for Bowling Green to 424 and 110. Ohio Route 25 is our main exit for Bowling Green. This was requested by Philip Martin because he got his undergrad at Bowling Green State University. A good buddy of mine actually went to Bowling Green as well, so right on. A cool one to talk about, and thank you for that request. I appreciate that. US 6 meets I-75 in the Bowling Green area, and on I-75, US 6 is signed for Napoleon and Fremont, so Fremont will be our next eastbound control city. We are meeting US 23, and this was requested by, I'm gonna mispronounce this one, but Chopper Chabuzada. Chopper, it's a very hard one. It's like a B and a Z. He wanted to mention this. I do apologize for butchering your name. He wanted to point this out because this is where he's from. US 23 heads to Upper Sandusky from here, which is his hometown. Thank you so much for that request. Here's another look at the US 23 intersection. So we see North 23, South 23. Adult video store here. I guess people don't have the internet in these parts. We are joining with a freeway and US 20. US 20 is signed west to Fremont and Perrysburg, and we're going to get on the Fremont bypass freeway with 20. And this iteration of the 620 concurrency, the longest and second longest roads in America, will end, but we will meet 20 again. Right now, 6 East Sandusky. We cross under the Ohio Turnpike, but we do not have an interchange with it. We're meeting Ohio too, but we are going straight. So Toledo is signed straight ahead, Cedar Point for the right, and Cleveland. We're actually heading into Sandusky proper. They don't mention that on this sign, but we do have a Sandusky welcome sign right there as well. Daniel Dobish requested that I mention anything Cedar Point related, and I've got a few Cedar Point requests, so I'll throw that one in first because here's our first sign for Cedar Point, where you turn to get there by not taking US 6, but you can get there by taking US 6 as well. So thank you so much for that request. Here at the Ohio 269 and Ohio 101 junction with US 6, we are meeting the original Margaritaville apparently. It looks a little different than the other Margaritavilles that I've seen. This was requested by Cooley Trips. He wanted to see this Margaritaville and access to Cedar Point, and we shall see more Cedar Point. So thank you so much for that request. This is downtown Sandusky, so Sandusky, of course, nobody comes to Sandusky for downtown. People are coming for Cedar Point. And in downtown Sandusky, we meet the beginning of US 250. Cedar Point Causeway, so turn left to get into Cedar Point. This was requested by Mark Sheeg, so I appreciate that request. Thank you so much. Never been to Cedar Point, but man, it sure looks like a cool spot to go to. I really want to go there one day. It's definitely high on my list for amusement parks that I've not been to yet. Famey Famous wanted me to find a way to show Cedar Point. You couldn't really see it anywhere on US 6, so this is from turning left onto that causeway. If you drive up just a little bit, you can see it. So I will show that for this request, and we're in Sandusky, we gotta look at Cedar Cedar Point. So thank you so much for that request. Coming out of Sandusky, we are joining with Ohio 2 once again, and we are signed east for Cleveland at this point. Apparently, Ohio 2 is the one that gets the Cleveland designation because US 6 leaves Ohio 2, and now we are going to be signed for Huron. Beyond Huron, we are signed for Vermilion. Yeah, Ohio 2 actually is kind of the more major road in these parts than US 6. US 6 is kind of like that. It'll take the back way sometimes. E&B wanted me to find a way to show Lake Erie at some point. It's hard to see Lake Erie anywhere from on US 6, but this was the only break in the trees that I could find it, so thanks for that request. Entering Lorain Corp, always Corp in Ohio. Avon Lake, this is just off of US 6 on Miller Park Road. This was requested by Daniel Dobish. This is where they spread his grandmother's ashes in Lake Erie at this spot. So he wanted to show that, and thank you so much for that. And my condolences for your grandmother. We're getting more properly into the Cleveland metro area now. We get Alt 6 headed one direction for Detroit Road, and we'll see Detroit Road again, and we will follow 6 and 2 concurrent on Clifton Boulevard. We meet US 20 once again in the Cleveland area, so US 20 will be concurrent with us. Cleveland. And here we are entering Cleveland. Cleveland is good enough to put a Welcome to Cleveland sign on an arterial road here. It's our first view of Cleveland skyline here.
Come and look at both of our buildings.
Come and look at both of their buildings. We're near the lake now, and East 6 and 20 are going to be leaving this going toward 25th Street. East 2 will continue along the lakeshore toward I-90. This is, believe it or not, the start of US 42, but there is no signage for it whatsoever. If you go further down that road, you can see US 42 there, but on US 6 we don't get a sign telling us that, and E&B wanted to see this intersection showing that, so thanks for that request. And also 6 here, we are turning left onto Detroit, and there's no sign telling us to turn left for US 6, so Cleveland not doing a great job signing their US highways here. And we cross over the Cuyahoga River right here on US 6. And we're entering downtown Cleveland.
Fun times in Cleveland today.
Chiefs are playing the Browns, so that is kind of the reason for US 6 in this part, because we're going right through Cleveland, although we don't see the stadium. Here is Tower City. This was requested by Daniel Dobish. He wanted to see that. The Jack Casino is kind of in the background there. This whole center, and you know, it's one of Cleveland's buildings, so right in the heart of downtown Cleveland. We're on a loop around Cleveland City Square, and there's no signage for US 6 there. They're not telling us which way to follow, but US 6 does go right through here.
Here's a statue of Moses Cleveland. He's the guy who invented Cleveland.
Here's Cleveland's other building, and we will be turning right, but there is no sign for US 6 telling us to do so. This is, I believe, the beginning of US 322 here in central Cleveland. It is turning right away from us, and we're going to be meeting I-90, so we get East I-90 to Ohio 2. So Ohio really puts a lot of prominence in Ohio 2. Probably should have just done that. That'd be a whole lot easier than doing Eastern US 6. This is MLK Drive in Eastern Cleveland. US 6 is on this old viaduct over the road here. This was requested by Daniel Dobish because he would take MLK to see his brother at the VA hospital nearby. So thank you so much for that request. He says it's a great part of the city. Looks lovely, lovely looking old architecture there. Here's the intersection with US 6 and Lakeview and 123rd Street. They both jut out to the left here. This was requested by Roadrunner because he grew up on 123rd Street and he always thought this was kind of a random intersection. Thank you so much for that request. All right, we're getting a US 6 veer left because we are joining up with US 20 once again. Euclid, Ohio. Here in Euclid, US 20 and US 6 are going to split, and this is the last time they will split. They will not meet again further east. So 2 grade highways split for the last time. This was requested by Roadrunner because he went to Euclid Central Middle School just near here, although he says it no longer exists. Thank you for that request. Right here, we cross over I-271, and once we leave Euclid and the Cleveland metro, immediate metro area, Chardon is the next main city we're signed for, and here we are there. We're now going to be signed for Andover, turn right. Here is downtown Andover, and you see that US 6 heads to the right from here to continue east. Connie Lake, Pennsylvania is going to be our next place we're going to be heading, and that is to the right. And welcome to Pennsylvania. I wonder if we'll have some provincial control cities on a back road like US 6. We would expect to have provincial control cities on a back road like US 6, but I'm guessing Pennsylvania might take it to another level. As we enter Pennsylvania, we are getting a Grand Army of the Republic Highway sign. To be fair, that is US 6's name throughout its entirety from Bishop all the way to Provincetown. For reference, we are in very rural northern Pennsylvania here. We're north of I-80 throughout the entirety of this route through Pennsylvania, south of southern New York's I-86. Linesville is the first town we're in, and we get Conneaut Lake for our first control city as we turn right on East 6. In Conneaut Lake, we are meeting with US 322. US 322 is west to the right and east forward, and we're merging with it, but we don't get a sign for US 6. Weird, we get 322, but 6 is the more important one. They don't mention that. 6 is straight ahead as well. I should also show here, this was requested by Boss King Inc. He wanted to point out that Pennsylvania 285 and Ohio 85 actually make for a shorter connection than staying on US 6 itself. So if you look at this map, the blue route is staying on US 6 and the red part is Ohio 85 and PA 285. He says he's never understood why they don't just reroute US 6 onto those roads instead of having it go out of the way, and I think that's a valid question. I think they probably should do just that. And thank you for that request. And we do see 6 and 322 are signed together eastbound, and Meadville will be our next control city, 5 miles away. For this part of Pennsylvania, Meadville is a pretty big spot, so the short distance is no problem. Before we get to Meadville, we meet southbound US 19, and US 19 will head off in that direction. We will become concurrent with northbound US 19. In fact, we see here our three-way concurrency will continue north US 19, east US 6, and 322. We meet I-79 as this triplex, and I-79 is smartly signed for Erie and Pittsburgh because this is the part of PA that actually does decent signage on interstates. We enter Meadville, and 322 will leave us. This was requested by Mark Sheeg. He wanted to point out 6, 19, and 322 are all together for a little while, and there's a whole lot of miles between these three roads. Thank you so much for that request. Further down in Meadville, US 19 and US 6 will separate, and we see that there is a 6N over there as well that we haven't really paid attention to. As we turn right, we see that Corey will be our control city. Edwin Paskey requested seeing Corey, Pennsylvania, because his dad sold peaches there. So thank you so much for that request. That's pretty cool. Coming out of Corey, Youngsville and Warren will be our next control cities, and neither of those are too far away either. On the Youngsville bypass, we meet Railroad Street. Railroad Street and US 6 was requested by 14 Rocket, so thank you so much for that request. Appreciate that. US 62 South signed for Teodet and Tionesta. This was requested by the Derpog. He talked about those quite a bit on his US 62 video and how hilariously bad those are signed because there is less than 1,000 people between those two cities, and there's definitely better places that PennDOT could be signing here. But PennDOT, what are you going to expect? So thanks so much for that request. That's a fun one. US 62 will become concurrent with us northbound as we head east for Warren. In Warren, US 62 North, Ludlow Street is the business district. 6 will continue around Warren though. This is Business 6 going through downtown Warren, and Hickory Street and US 6 is the heart of downtown. This was requested by 14 Rocket, and he also wanted to point out the Flatiron building. I'm assuming that is the building in the background that kind of looks like the Flatiron building in New York City, only much shorter. Thank you so much for that request. Coming out of Warren, we are splitting with US 62, and Sheffield will become our control city. Sheffield is where Pennsylvania 666 ends. East 6 is signed for Kane. Kane, 17 miles away from this point. Here is downtown Kane, Pennsylvania. It's pretty cool looking, old architecture here. This was requested by Edwin Paskey because it is his brother-in-law's childhood home. Looks like a good spot. Still got a Radio Shack there, I see. I thought those were all gone. This is only 2 months ago, and thank you for that request. In Lance Corners, we're meeting US 219, and we are now signed for Mount Jewett, 3 miles away. It's not too far. PA signed such small cities and in such small increments, I'll skip ahead to Smethport. Here is downtown Smethport, and Smethport was requested by Edwin Paskey because it is his Aunt Shirley's childhood home. So thank you so much for that request. Yeah, I like all the brick. It's kind of cool, northern PA. In Smethport, our bottom line city is Cootersport. Cootersport. I'm probably saying it wrong though. In Cootersport, 6 is going to turn right and be signed for Wellsboro at 45 miles away. That's a pretty good distance of a control city for PA. Jersey Shore. It's way more than 73 miles to the Jersey Shore. In Wellsboro, we are turning left and we are going to be signed for Mansfield, 13 miles away. In Mansfield, we meet US 15 and this is future I-99. Coming out of Mansfield, now we are assigned for Troy and Towanda. Speaking of I-99, now we're meeting US 220, which is the original route for much of I-99. In Towanda, we're going to be turning left and we're going to be signed for Wysox, 2 miles away. I'm not sure how to say that. I feel like it's the fast way of talking about the White Sox. Hey, you see the White Sox? We are crossing the Susquehanna River, and in Wysox, we are signed for Wyousing? Something like that? I don't know how they're coming up with these names in Pennsylvania. These are crazy city names. We are going to be signed for Laceyville next, 7 miles away. So yeah, a whole lot of small places that I've certainly never heard of. But northern Pennsylvania is not that well known of a place, and US 6 goes through some pretty sparse regions quite far away from the bigger cities of Pennsylvania. In Laceyville, we're now going to be signed for Meshopin, 7 miles away. Never too long of a distance here. And in Meshopin, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, we are signed for another small town 9 miles away from here. We meet Business 6 East and Bypass 6 East, but which one's the real US 6? I'm not sure, but East Bypass is going to Scranton. I've heard of Scranton, so that's what we're going to follow. On the way to Scranton, we meet US 11, and US 11 is signed south with us concurrently, and north US 11, you head off. 6 and 11 come on under this towering bridge of the end of I-476 in the Scranton area here, and we're going to end up dealing with that road in just a minute. So we're getting 81 and East 6 and South 476 for Binghamton and Wilkes-Barre. Lots of stuff going on here. 476 is part of the Pennsylvania Turnpike system, of course. It's the Northeast Extension, and we're not getting on that. We are joining with I-81 for Binghamton and Wilkes-Barre. And then we get our choice of North 81, South 81, and we want South 81 for Wilkes-Barre. We get an exit for Business 6 not far on to I-81 for Dixon City. 81 signed south for Wilkes-Barre. We are getting US 6 and I-84 and South 380 for Carbondale and Mount Pocono. A pretty big interchange here with all three roads having kind of different routes. We see once we've gotten into the distributor lane, you have a choice to stay on 81 south, or you can continue toward 6, 84, and 380. 84 and 380 are going one way. 6 east is leaving all this mess, headed toward Carbondale on its own. This is exit 6 for Meredith Street, Carbondale and Childs. Exit 6, US 6 is on its own here. There's no way it's 6 miles or 6 ordinal numbers away from anything. Where are they getting this number? In Carbondale, we are getting Honesdale as US 6's next control city. Here is Honesdale and lovely fall foliage right here, and we are going to be turning right and we will be signed for Hawley. Pretty nice here, this Honesdale here. This is a pretty nice looking spot. And here's another look at downtown Honesdale. Yeah, there's some really nice looking cities along US 6 in Pennsylvania, I'll say that. And here is Hawley. Hawley looks lovely as well. Yeah, there's some really nice looking small towns here, I gotta say. We're going to be signed for Milford now. Milford a little distant at 23 miles away, and also we're signed for it because it's the last city in Pennsylvania for the most part. We're meeting 209 and 206, and we are going to be signed for Matamoros. So yeah, I guess there is another city we could sign in Pennsylvania. So we got Matamoros 6 and Stroudsburg 34 straight ahead. Yeah, PA doing anything they can do to sign PA with the border towns. 6 and 209 are headed together here eastbound, and I-84 is just to our left. Here's an entrance onto I-84, and now we get into Matamoros. So, I don't know, did they name it after the Mexican border town for being a border town? Here's our bridge over the Delaware River, a rare free bridge over the Delaware. Almost all of them have tolls, and this was requested by P. Barry 1988. He wanted to say his grandparents live a few blocks away, used to walk on this bridge. He's walked on this bridge a few times to New York. So thanks so much for that request. Appreciate that. And we get a complicated no parking anytime here, this time, so that works as welcome to New York. We are in Port Jervis, New York right now, so we get a nice Port Jervis sign. We've got a low railroad bridge coming up, 12'8", but then underneath it, it says actual bridge height is 13'8". Patrick Gast wanted me to show that, so thank you so much for that request. That's a fun one. We are splitting with Route 209. 209 north is to the left, and 6 continues straight for eastbound 6. We're meeting New York routes 42 and 97, and Patrick Gast wanted me to show this as well because he takes 97 to get to camp twice a year. So thank you so much for that request. We, on the other hand, are turning right away from both of those. This was a popular intersection the first time around. We're in Port Jervis, New York. This was requested by Patrick Gast. He wanted to see New York Highway 97 because it heads to the Upper Delaware Scenic Byway and Hawk's Nest, and there are wonderful views of the mountains and the Delaware River from there. So thank you for that request. Tyson Transit Cam wanted me to show the Tri-State Monument under I-84. You can get to it by going through the Laurel Grove Cemetery. So here is the monument, and thank you for that request. Nano also wanted me to show you the Tri-State marker, so here's a different angle of it. Here is the Delaware River and the marker and I-84 bridge right over there. Thank you so much for that request. We're meeting I-84 again. We're kind of hanging out with I-84 for this part of the country, and Scranton is on I-84 west 57 miles. So as you can see, coming out of Port Jervis, we're pretty close to I-84, so the control cities on 6 don't really matter that much. They're just going to be small towns. Through traffic would be on I-84. At our intersection with I-84, Goshen is going to be our next control city. There's a Legoland, it looks like there, but you can't see it well from the road, so I didn't show it. But coming out of Goshen, it looks like our next control city is going to be Chester, as we are going to be turning left to continue on US 6. US 6 becomes a freeway in these parts, and here's our exit for 94 for Chester and Florida. This exit is actually going in the westbound direction. There is no exit for eastbound. This is exit 127. But this was requested a couple of times by Patrick Gast, so I wanted to make sure I got this in here. And this was the exit he uses to get to his grandma's and aunt's house. So thank you so much for that request. US 6 is now going to exit itself, as this road we're on is going to become a route to I-87 and the New York State Thruway. So 6 will be signed for Bear Mountain. New York Route 293 heads to West Point, 11 miles away. Yankees 107 wanted me to point that out, so thank you for that request. That is the route to West Point. We are heading toward Peekskill. We're following 6 for Bear Mountain State Park and the Palisades Interstate Parkway, and to the Bear Mountain Bridge. So now we are on the Palisades Interstate Parkway, and the Bear Mountain Bridge exit is going to be coming soon. We are meeting US 9W, which is signed north for West Point. We are also going to be taking 6 and 202 toward the Bear Mountain Bridge. And we see at this roundabout, East 6 and East 202 head off for the Bear Mountain Bridge and Peekskill on the other side of the Hudson River. This is a toll bridge over the Hudson. Here we see the toll for the Bear Mountain Bridge, and this was requested by Boss King Inc. He wanted to see this toll plaza because it is the only toll on the entire route in either direction for US 6. And he says, remember, north of Albany, there are no tolls for the Hudson, and south of Albany, there are always tolls. And we see here, it is $1.65 for Easy Pass, $2.15 toll by mail, no cash option. So thank you for that request. Say, look at the Bear Mountain Bridge. It is a really cool one. This was requested by Yankees 107 because of the beautiful scenery, and I agree, this is a lovely bridge. Thank you so much for that request. And our next shot is of the Bear Mountain Bridge, and this was our opening shot as well, so that is a cool bridge over the Hudson River. On the other side of the river, we are getting 6 and 202 for Peekskill, turn right. 6 exits itself once again, and we are going to be on Main Street for Peekskill. 202 is going to be leaving us, and they don't tell us this, but US 6 will go straight. We are in Mohegan Lake, New York, and this was requested by Bob Witt. His school bus route when he was a kid went right through Mohegan Lake right over here on US 6, and he says he used to tell his parents that US 6 goes all the way to California, but they didn't believe him. Well, I'm here to tell you, you were right. Thanks so much for that request. Outside of Mohegan Lake, we are meeting the Taconic State Parkway. We're all kind of in the New York City area. That's why there's so many parkways. We're kind of in the far northern suburbs of the city here. On the Taconic State Parkway, US 6 is signed for Mahopac, and Mahopac becomes our new eastbound control city. Here in Mahopac, we are going to turn right for Brewster. Brewster, 5 miles away from here. We meet US 202 once again in Brewster, and we are going to be turning left and becoming concurrent once more. And we are now signed for Danbury, so that's in Connecticut. We're almost out of New York. We've got an exit for I-84 and I-684, but we shall continue straight along with US 202. Danbury's signed for that because it's faster to take I-84 to Danbury, but we'll get there as well on US 6. Chris Brooks requested the General Bake Shop in Brewster, New York, because it is the home of his favorite key lime pie. So that's a good reason. Key lime pie is awesome. And thank you for that request. And welcome to Connecticut. We see Danbury city limit as soon as we cross the state line. Here in Danbury, Chris Brooks requested seeing Stanziatos. This is a shout out for his son Daniel, his birthday, because this is his favorite pizza, the wood-fired pizza at this restaurant. So happy birthday, Daniel. And thank you for that request. We meet I-84 and US 7 here. West 84 signed for Newburgh, and we are going to be joining with East 84 along with 202. North 7 and East 202 are going to leave us for Brookfield and New Milford. We get East 84 for Waterbury, and for whatever reason, US 6 is not signed here, although the other US routes are. Maybe because we're still concurrent with 84. We leave I-84 at exit 8. We are signed on Newtown Road for Bethel, and we'll also go to Newtown. We are in Newtown, Connecticut. We're going to be turning left. Of course, a city with a sad history. Unfortunately, we pass through all too many cities like that in this channel. This is the Blue Colony Diner in Newtown, and this was requested by Tyson Transit Cam because he had lunch here with his grandmother and great-grandmother a few years ago. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that request. We meet I-84 once again, and we are going to be rejoining I-84, and it is signed for Waterbury. At exit 15, we leave I-84 once again, and we are now signed for Southbury. A whole lot of berries out here. We got Danbury and Waterbury and Southbury, and we're going to have more on US 6. And in fact, yes, we are going to be signed left for Woodbury and Roxbury. We're on Watertown Road, and we are going to be turning right for Waterbury. We're meeting State Route 8, which is a freeway, and it is signed for Torrington. We will be concurrent with that briefly. And just a couple miles up the road after being concurrent with 8, we are leaving with Connecticut 222 for Thomaston and Bristol. So Bristol becomes our new control city. Here we are in Bristol, home of the worldwide leader. We are not anywhere near the ESPN campus though, so I am not showing that. We've snaked our way back to being right next to I-84 again, and we are going to be rejoining that. Now in the Hartford area, we get 84 East Boston. Wow, that's cool. 84 doesn't go to Boston, but it is definitely the way to get to Boston from this point, so I like that a lot. In downtown Hartford, we are meeting I-91, which is signed south for New Haven and north for Springfield. 84 still East Boston. This interchange, we got to take a closer look at this interchange. From this angle, any of you recognize this interchange? I-84 and I-91? How about if we pull back from this angle? Does this look familiar to any of you rock fans out there? Yes, this is indeed the interchange that was used for the cover of Radiohead's OK Computer, one of the most awesome records ever. That is indeed the interchange on the cover. I'll show you a look at the interchange again so you can take another look here as if though you don't have a rewind button. Coming out of Hartford, we get 384 East for Providence, and 84 itself is signed for Boston. We are leaving with US 44, the Middle Turnpike West for Manchester. At the end of 384, we get 6 and 44 East for Mansfield and Providence, so Providence shows up for the first time. Here in Manchester, Connecticut, 44 and 6 are splitting. This was requested by Boss King Inc. because he always felt like 44 was kind of a weird designation for a road in this part of the country, and I gotta say, I agree. And thank you so much for that request. 6's expressway ends once again, and we are going to be turning right here and sign for Providence. We're meeting I-395, which is signed south for Norwich, and it looks like north it's not signed for anything. And right after passing 395, we get into Rhode Island. So we haven't spent much time in Rhode Island on this channel. Good to be back. In Rhode Island, US 6 is signed Providence, Eastbound, and Connecticut, Westbound. We're going to be joining with I-295, signed for Providence and Warwick. We're on 295 south briefly, and then we get a freeway of our own, 6 East Providence, as US 6 is the major east-west freeway in Providence. This is what it looks like on US 6 as we head into Providence. Memorial Boulevard and downtown is an exit only as we approach the center of the city. This is also our unsigned meeting with US 1. US 1, to get to there, you would follow this exit as well. And this exit was requested by New York Rambler. Thanks so much for that. New York Rambler also wanted me to show this branch of Fire and Ice, which is right underneath that interchange. Although it no longer exists, it was a place that he really loved to go have some food. So thanks so much for that request. As for 6 itself, it is going to be joining I-95 south and heading toward 195. While we're concurrent with I-95, we pass by the Providence College basketball arena, and this was requested by Colin Boyle because he is a University of New Hampshire fan and doesn't like Providence College. Providence College, I got no beef with them, but I still kind of associate them with Rhode Island, who I do have beef with because of 1998. Thank you for that request. 6 and 195 are going to leave right after that, and it is signed for East Providence and Cape Cod, Mass. The end is in sight now, our first indication of our actual end. We cross the Providence River, and we have a pretty good view of downtown Providence as we cross here. After being concurrent with 195 for a short amount of time, 6 to 1A and 114 Pawtucket Avenue and Seekonk, Mass. coming up soon. Here is our actual exit for US 6. We're right next to 195, and we are entering Seekonk, and that is also the indication we are entering Massachusetts, our final state. As I said, 195 very nearby. 195 is signed for Fall River and Cape Cod. US 6 is the local road for 195 around here, so we are signed for Swansea now. 6 becomes a freeway once again, or at least an expressway, so Fall River is our control city. Further down that ramp we see 6 East Fall River, and Fall River is a somewhat major city in this part of Massachusetts. 195 is never too far away. That is 195 just to the left of us. At Massachusetts 88, we are now signed 6 East for Dartmouth. Thought that was in New Hampshire. And we're getting to areas in Massachusetts where I am certainly not going to attempt to pronounce place names, but 6 continues east. And then next up, 6 is going to be east, signed for Buzzards Bay. In Buzzards Bay, we are meeting Route 28, and we are signed for Falmouth and Hyannis. We go right under the Bourne Bridge, which is one of the routes to Cape Cod. We will be taking the other route. Here's our junction with Massachusetts 3. It's signed for Boston. It also goes to Plymouth. The Derpog wanted to point that out because of Thanksgiving and the Pilgrims and all that. Thank you for that request. Going in the westbound direction, Edward Rasmussen wanted to see the exit for his hometown of Plymouth once again in this episode. He wanted for the westbound episode, but it might be a long time, if ever, before I get to that, so I will throw it in here. So we see 6 west is for Buzzards Bay, and Massachusetts 3 is heading for Plymouth and Boston. Thank you for that request. Here is the actual Sagamore Bridge. This will take us over to Cape Cod officially. 6A leaves us and heads to Sagamore, and 6 East is now signed for Hyannis and Provincetown. So I believe this is our first mention of Provincetown since when we were in Bishop, California. Edward Rasmussen also wanted to look at the architecture to the bridges between Massachusetts 132 and Barnstable and the Cape Cod Canal. So he said a good sample of that is where US 6 goes under Massachusetts 149, which is right here. So that is pretty nice architecture for how they have these bridges, and thank you for that request. I appreciate that. Hyannis was one of the major places signed so far, so here is our exit for Hyannis. At that exit, US 6 is now signed for Orleans and Provincetown. Exit 78A was requested by Mo Cowan because a friend won a silent auction for a beach house off of that exit, and he got stuck in traffic 24 hours later trying to evacuate Hurricane Irene, so that's unfortunate. But he did get to see Provincetown, and it was good times. Interesting story. Thanks so much for that request. 6A was with us. I guess 6A must be related to 6, and it is for Orleans and East Brewster, and we're on a Super 2 kind of freeway now. So since Orleans was our control city before, we are now signed 6 East for Eastham and Provincetown. Highland Road is our exit for the Cape Cod Light, and we finally get a bit of coastal as we continue along this winding road toward Provincetown. We are meeting the route into downtown Provincetown, so our control city goes beyond our last control city, beyond Provincetown. We are now east for Herring Cove Beach. And it looks like we've run out of green signs coming this far, and we are getting Provincetown signs straight ahead, Herring Cove Beach to the right, and Race Point. This is the very end of US 6, so we made it this far, and then the ocean is blocked by by trees. Let's look beyond the trees. Let's look at the Atlantic Ocean, since we have made it all the way here. All right. Whew, all right, let's take a look at Todd's the way it should be for the entirety of US 6. We're only talking about eastbound, and eastbound, I'm going to say it's going to be these cities here. All of these cities should be eastbound up until we get to the Quad Cities. This is just the first half of US 6. From Bishop until the Mississippi River should all include these and not any others that aren't included. Beyond the Mississippi River, these are the control cities that should be included. Feel free to pause that and take a look at those. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Control City Freak. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be taking a little break next week, but we will be back the week after that with US 60. So that will be awesome. US 60, it's a great road. I'm excited to do it. And we will be going as far as the Mississippi River, starting in Virginia Beach for that episode. Till next time, my name is Todd, and keep on trucking.